Hello everyone. Welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever in the world you're joining. This webinar series is brought to you by IFES, GEDC, and IUCEE. My name is Aliki Papas. I am the Communications Manager for IFES GEDC. I'm stepping in for Dr. Krishna today, and it is my pleasure and honor to welcome our presenter, Dr. Ramiro Jordan. He is a scientist, innovator, educator, and entrepreneur. He's a member of the faculty of the Department of Electrical and Computer Engineering at the University of New Mexico. Currently, he's Associate Dean of Engineering for Global Initiatives and the Associate Chair of Electrical and Computer Engineering. His research activities include sustainability, peace engineering, smart grids, cognitive radio, multidimensional signal processing, and software development. He's a past president of IFES, a close friend of ours, and the founder of the Ibero-American Consortium for Science and Technology Education, known as ISTEC. And I will hand over the controls to him. Just a quick reminder, if you have any comments or questions, please submit them through the Q&A section in our GoToWebinar platform. Thank you for joining, and Dr. Ramiro, over to you.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So thank you for this opportunity to talk about peace engineering as a follow-up from the November 2018 first Global Peace Engineering Conference. And this was a WEF GDC 2018 event. So this is an image that I asked my students to come up to raise the awareness of how drastic or the global challenges are. So they capture this screen of the planet Earth with unhappy face. There we have the doomsday clock, and this is now really ticking because of the situation we're living in in Ukraine. As a global citizen, what is it that we're going to do? That's the big question. And then there's already an action alert, global citizens, that there's no planet B, right? This is the only planet we got. And of course, there's a roadmap by the 17 SDGs of the United Nations. So let's get started. So my talk is Peace Engineering, a Call to Action, from November 2018 to the present. And these are the organizations that I work with. So why is it that we're doing this, and why? And I borrow some images from a good friend, Pablo Garcia, and who's an excellent photographer. And I thought I would use those images of animals and the planet and all that. But we find ourselves in an interesting situation now, right? The old world mentality. I have to take possession of territories, and knowledge and information does not matter. We can do our own, get away with a lot of things. And we're in the middle of this, and it's still unfolding, and let's hope peace is reached. Interesting, right? That I have to talk about peace engineering in the middle of this situation. So why are we doing this? This is from the beginning of the first Global Peace Engineering Conference that we organized. There's a purpose, right? We want to enable and empower people, communities, and institutions. Context is very, very important. We need to respect their cultures, and we need to preserve their cultures. It's not that one recipe fits all, and it's not a textbook solution that the whole world has to follow. We have to be context aware. In New Mexico, we have 24 different ethnic pueblos, and each one is different, and we must respect each other. The other thing that's very important is information knowledge has to be symmetric. If it's not symmetric, then you have asymmetries, and this is where you get into trouble. And we follow a model that is all teach, all learn, and you'll see where it's coming from later on in my presentation. So why are we doing this? This is the original slide that I used in the opening of the first Global Peace Engineering Conference in November of 2018 here in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And one of the reasons we wanted to organize this conference is because we wanted to celebrate the birth of big science, what is known as the Manhattan Project. It was started here in New Mexico in Los Alamos. And at the same time, it's interesting that that lab was created to build that weapon, but at the same time, for peace purposes, deter war, okay? So at the same time, we said, okay, we got to change the mindset. You know, we have one planet, one environment, one chance, and we got to do something about it. And then we have to change our mindset, and not only in engineering, but every discipline has to change, and we need to break away from silos and start connecting the dots from law, finance, of course, engineering, the arts, the social sciences, and all existing. Plus, we may need to create new disciplines to address the global challenges. And when I created ISTEC, my definition at that time of peace engineering is, if I can use the language of science and technology in Latin America, maybe we can collaborate and enhance trust and work together. This was in 1990 when there was no internet in the region. So another point I want to make is asymmetry in knowledge and information is not good. And that graph at the bottom is how I see what peace engineering is. And we educate, we innovate, we damage, and we have to repair. And something that in engineering we always use is called feedback. Bring it back into the classroom, okay? And look at the intended and unintended consequences and try to avoid conflict. We kind of drop that. So this is the original definition of peace engineering from November 2018. There were many other peace engineering efforts around the world. One was by Professor Bisselin, who started about 2004, more or less. They organized a workshop, and they already came up with their own definition of peace engineering. This is the definition that we embraced in that conference. So, what are some of these global challenges? There's one that summarizes the situation where we're at. Is called climate change. And this slide tries to summarize in a nutshell, what is it that we're dealing with? We have air contamination, pollution that's affecting all of us, even though it kind of slowed down thanks to COVID. We are polluting the waters. The fisheries are being destroyed. We're also exceeding fishing. Coral reefs are disappearing. We have very powerful storms now that go beyond control: hurricanes, tornadoes, lightning, floods in parts of the world, and then droughts that are terrible. In New Mexico, we have a terrible drought. The last time it was recorded was 1,200 years ago. So we are desperate, okay? So the other thing that we keep seeing is that, ice is melting in North and South Pole. Glaciers are disappearing. So people like in the Andes that need the glaciers for water to live, to survive, to farm, it's disappearing. So what do we do about it? And of course, the forest fires, that's affecting everybody. So this is known to everybody. And the question is, what are we going to do about it? So we experienced this in November of last year, COP26. We expected more to happen, and there was a lot of disappointment, especially from the young people, the young generation. My generation, we screwed up. I always tell my students, I travel in the exit row of an airplane because anytime I'm out, and we didn't do a good job to protect the planet. and we're still not doing a good job. There was a lot of blah, blah, blah in that conference, but less and less commitment to do something about it. We cannot, the problem is we expect too much from interest groups and governments. This has to be taken at the personal level. I strongly believe that climate change, to address any of the global challenges like water, energy, telecom, has to start at home, needs to start with the individual. You need to start measuring your footprint, how much food you waste, how much water you waste, etc. Climate change brings other big challenges, okay? And we saw this thanks to COVID. Now people more and more across the world, I hope they're talking about JEDI, justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. And there's more to this, accountability, right? Racism. That's now it's strong. People are talking about it. And one word that I think we borrow from the Spanish language is aporophobia, the rejection we have to the poor. Okay, we don't like the poor, right? We need to marginalize that. So there's a lot of problems that are coming and becoming more intense because of the global challenges and because of climate change, and because we need to change this. It's like I said, it starts at home. It starts with the individual, and this is where peace engineering should start. So something that was interesting is that the NAE didn't have an updated strategic plan. For many years, for about 20 years, they did not have a strategic plan. They did have, but it was outdated. So finally, in October of last year, they came up with a new strategic plan. And please take a look at it and look at the vision: to be trusted source of engineering advice for creating a healthier, more secure, and more sustainable world. That's good. So now it's trying to align itself with the UN 17 SDGs. I mean, the 14 NAEs are aligned, but that strategic plan was not up to date. And the mission, right? Advance the welfare and prosperity of the nation by providing independent advice on matters involving engineering and technology, and by promoting a vibrant engineering profession and public appreciation of engineering. Again, we're connecting the social sciences with the hard sciences. And if you look at the themes, it's interesting that we want to increase the talent in the U.S. through a strong commitment of diversity, equity, and inclusion. JEDA keeps coming up. Instill culture of ethical and environmental responsibility in engineering. Look at the unintended and unintended consequences. Identify and inform the frontiers of engineering theory, practice, and policy. Something that we never thought of in engineering is, how do we connect policy and finance? Something that here is not included is finance. We need to start learning more about finance, and this is one of the big thrust in peace engineering, is bringing finance. And how do you finance peace? Okay. And then improve capability and competences for complex systems engineering. System thinking and complex system, we need to bring it into the classroom. So what are we doing? What are we doing? I mean, what is UNM doing for peace engineering? So as I indicated, we did co-host the first Global Peace Engineering Conference. That was in 2018. It was interesting that in one of the panels in November 2018, a group of scientists from Los Alamos, Sandia, warned us that the signals were there that we may have a pandemic. And sure enough, a year after, December 2019, we had COVID. Okay. So we see peace engineering as an emerging field. We meaning UNM, my university where I work, and in cooperation with the national labs. So we started a peace engineering minor. This program exists in the university and is open to all disciplines. There's no signals. We are working on peace engineering graduate programs. If all goes well, we will launch a fully online master's degree program in peace engineering and a certificate program. If all goes well, maybe in the fall of 2022. If not, it'll be early spring of next year. And it's open to collaboration of members of the Peace Engineering Consortium. One of the great outcomes of the first Global Peace Engineering Conference is the creation of the Peace Engineering Consortium. We have many universities in the US, and we're admitting other universities from around the world that want to collaborate under peace engineering. And one specific event, two specific events that I'm going to talk is, we had a great workshop in Medellin, Colombia last year. This was thanks to Fulbright. We had a Colombian peace engineering workshop, and it was just amazing how many people accepted and embraced this. And then last year in October 2021, we organized a peace engineering for a sustainable planet by 2030. We got 8 years to reach this before we start hitting dates of no return. And this was done with the national labs, especially Sandia National Laboratories. And we kicked off the UNM biome. So we're in the process of building a global research center, virtual. No buildings here, it's all virtual. So let me expand. So we got to walk our talk. So this is the minor, 15 credit hours. We have 2 courses that deal with really looking at how can we apply math to different environments like sustainability, ethics, society. We talk about design thinking, project management. Everybody, I believe every school around the world are working already in peace engineering. We're just trying to connect all the dots and cooperate. One thing that we really want to do with Peace Engineering Consortium is look at the context. The context is extremely important. We never think about bringing context into the classroom. How people resolve issues in Argentina is different than in Brazil or within Argentina itself. If we can learn how problems and design is being done in Sudan, compare that with the UK, that is what we need to exchange. And this is why we want this consortium to grow and help us develop content that can be shared so we don't reinvent the wheel. So this is just I'll share the slides with everybody, but this is a concrete example of a minor that we launched here. And something that we also did is there's a COIL program. It's an interesting method to collaborate across borders and different universities. And we started this with a university in Mexico, CETIS, and we co-taught this course. And you can see there some of the themes that were brought into the classroom. We had first pilot project without COIL and without CETIS. When I first started the minor, I had 8 students, and this time we had 43 students. So these are the themes that people had to work on: captology, the whistleblowers, global warming, global inaction on climate change linked to psychological distress in young people. This is a research that was published in the UK. So hands-on. What was interesting is that students from Mexico had to team up all virtually with students at UNM, and they had to address these issues, but look at it from the state perspective, like Baja California, Mexico, New Mexico, bring it down to the city where they were living and the county, and look at the numbers and go out and talk to the community and see what they can do. So an interesting project was, how can we use the smartphones for the 17 SDGs? Look at if there's any apps that have been developed, or can we develop apps that can allow me to look at the 17 SDGs measure, and do something about it. So we are looking for partners, okay? One of the partners that I will explain a little bit is Project Echo. We believe that this is a great window of opportunity for new relevant research and also entrepreneurial activities and leadership. So we just want to be a part of this group. So this is some outcomes of the global workshop that we organized with the labs. And we did some surveys, outcomes. I mean, do participants feel that peace engineering is critical in the present and future? And it was overwhelming. People, we need to start changing the mindset. So people from all over the world responded and said, yes, we need to do something. And many universities are doing something, but we need to really highlight that. So how can outcomes of that workshop? We need to bring it into engineering programs to transform engineering education. Peace engineering has to be transdisciplinary. Like I said, connect from policy to finance, engineering, all the different disciplines. And you cannot do it alone. We need to collaborate. Context is so important. We need to learn from each other. And from the beginning, I said we need to embrace the community, culture, and individuals. We have to respect them. And something that was interesting is that peace engineering should inform diplomacy and policy making. We need to talk to our leaders and help them with diplomacy and policy making, like now, the situation we're living in Europe. And foster peace engineering, do research, and this will create opportunities for entrepreneurial activities. So the next steps as a consortium, we said, well, we got to continue to push, and we need to really collaborate and enhancing or creating academic programs from minor to graduate programs and certificates. And it's not okay just to create a community of interest. We need to create communities of action. We got to do something. We can't just talk. So these are the 5 topics that were identified for research. Of course, climate security, life sustainable infrastructures. The technology exists that we can recycle a lot of the plastics and chemicals that exist in the world. The other thing is we need to bring healthcare, because everything is connected now, and connect that with engineering, infrastructures, and all of that. Complex system modeling has been already talked about. And something that is very important is global security and cooperative monitoring. I put some links there, and I encourage you to look at OSINT, open source intelligence. This is a new field. Tools are being developed by the open source community so we can bring transparency into the picture. And there's no licenses, this is free. This will allow us to monitor what's going on. A lot of what you see coming out in the news on the issue between Russia and Ukraine, it's coming out of open source intelligence. And how do we transform ideas into action? So these are the 3 groups. I'll share the slides. I don't want to read this, but we need to really change curricula. We need to do outreach, reach out to the communities that surround us and others around the world. And we can't do it alone. We need partnerships. So this just summarizes some of the projects that we're already working: metrics, data models, how can we measure, and so we can quantify. I mean, engineering is about facts. So we need to collect data and measure that and bring it back into the classroom. And again, there's that graphic that we educate, we innovate, we damage and repair, and bring it back into the classroom so we don't commit the same mistakes. We are accredited by ABET, and these are at least the arrows are pointing of ABIT's already looking for how can we measure peace engineering. It's right there. The Project ECHO. Project ECHO was started at my university, and they're trying to change how healthcare is delivered around the world. Their goal is to touch the lives of 1 billion people by 2025. Project ECHO is every medical school in the US, the CDC, World Health Organization, and many other organizations around the world are part of ECHO. ECHO now touches over 160 countries, and they do training on every disease that can be treated. Now they add it to their database, and they can treat people on diseases that are curable. And the neat thing about ECHO is that all teach or learn model. That means that they're democratizing knowledge. They're bringing that knowledge to the remote areas, so the experts can reach through different people, remote areas, and treat people. So very successful. They were given lots of money, like $237 million by the US Congress to train every nurse, every first responder in the US because of COVID. And they were able to control the spread of COVID in nursing homes, for instance. So this is a map of ECHO around the world, and we team up with them. And the reason we teamed up with them is because how can you provide healthcare if you don't have water, you don't have energy, you don't have IT or telecommunications? They hit a snag, and in New Mexico, we have, like I said, 24 different pueblos. The Navajo is one pueblo, and they had the highest rate in the world of contamination from COVID, and people were dying. And the reason that we couldn't help them is because there's no water, or the water they had, it was contaminated. Okay, how can we provide good healthcare services? And ECHO uses Zoom. They teamed up with Zoom many years ago. How can we provide good healthcare services if there's no telecommunications, there's no energy? And this lack of what we call wet, you see this around the world. We need, as engineers, we need to address this issues of infrastructure. And with this comes healthcare, education, security, food security, supply chains, so on and so forth. So we teamed up, and there's a lot of initiatives, but what we launched is what we call the WET Kit, Water Energy Telecommunication Kit. This is some of the projects that we're targeting are in Sudan, Kenya, Uganda, Peru, and others. And we are creating what we call CERTs. We want to create community engineering response teams that will work with the community medical response teams of ECHO to provide basic infrastructure, water, energy, telecom, and then the MD students can provide the healthcare needed in the remote areas. We're not talking to big cities. We want to reach out to the very remote areas of the world. So we are working with many students, many student organizations to create a wet kit. So basic water for purification, disinfecting, chlorine, energy, all kinds of energy. All this, we're trying to fit it in a backpack of a collection of backpacks that can be deployed easily to remote areas through the CERTs, and the CERTs will work with the CMRTs, with the medical response team. And we are in the process of launching our Peace Engineering Hub in Sudan, maybe around May of this year. And the lead is Dr. Tawa Musa from the University of Science and Sudan University of Science and Technology. And we want to empower these two groups of students. And we're working with them to develop this wet kit. And not only Sudan, but many other collaborators around the world. So I want to finish by asking you, what is peace engineering to you? Okay, And these are, I borrowed this from a good colleague, Haiti Rogers. She gave a presentation for Peace Engineering Echo. And these are some of the questions we might ask ourselves. What do we value most and want to keep? That's resiliency. What do we need to let go of, so as not to make matters worse? Relinquishment. What could we bring back that will help us with these difficult times? That's restoration. And with what and whom shall we make peace as we're waiting to our independence? Reconciliation. And I'm going to stop here. I'm going to thank everybody, and thank you, Aliki, for organizing this, and Hans and all the people, and open for any questions. And I'm sorry I didn't put the camera up, because if I put the camera, I can't hear you. The audio starts being choppy. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ramiro. Excellent presentation. We do have questions coming through. Again, we encourage everyone in the audience, if you have comments, questions, please, this is the time to submit them. I'm actually going to unmute one of our participants so that he could ask his question.
Okay.
And Sergio, are you able to unmute yourself and then go ahead and chime in? Looks like you're self-muted, Sergio.
Oh, I think that's it. I think I saw, this is a new platform for me. I think I saw the button. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you. Welcome to our webinar, and
Great.
go ahead with your question.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. So I guess the piece that I wanted to bring into the discussion has to do with the context and also the interdisciplinary opportunities for peace engineering. I have attended a few of these. I attended the panel in Madrid, and I couldn't attend the New Mexico conference, unfortunately. But one of the things that, or two things specifically that strike me, is that there is very little mention of the connection and the opportunities for connection with the field of peace and conflict studies, which is, it's a constant, it's a field that's in constant flux and changing, but it is an established interdisciplinary field that has dealt with, brought resources from multiple fields to address the issue of peace and conflict studies and activity around, technology and development. So there hasn't been a lot of mention, just like, for example, in the UNESCO connection between engineering and the SDGs, there isn't a lot of mention of SDG 16, which is the one that has to do with a culture of peace. The other thing that I've noticed is that there is often, when the consortium is speaking as a consortium, there is often a lot of focus on what has been done around innovation as entrepreneurship, some of the work that Stanford is doing, for example. And that aspect, generally, I feel is very critical of dominant power relations in the economic system. And so I wanted to ask what pieces of the discussion, of the dialogue within the consortium or within IFES have engaged with the issue of connecting with the peace and conflict studies, especially perspectives there, and also engaging with the decolonial studies and other critical social theory that addresses issues, also science and technology studies as well, that addresses the issues around the inequities in a lot of the economic system that is driving the technological innovation. So I just wanted to kind of bring those things, bring those elements here, and just see what the space for the headspace for these is within the effort to conceptualize peace engineering.
Thank you, Sergio. Thank you. That's a really good question. And let me break it up into pieces so I can try to answer the question. First of all, we do work with the programs that deal with conflict studies. One group that I can mention is GMU, the Carter Center. We work very closely with them. At my university, we also have a conflict group, but not a center like the GMU. and we do not want to reinvent the wheel. We work with them, and the interesting thing is that a lot of these conflict study centers, they haven't looked at the engineering part of how we can bring engineering into the mix, and this is how we're working with them, and not only GMU but other the universities that have conflict studies and resolution and mediation and all of that. That's very important. And this is why peace engineering, I think we can influence the policymakers and the diplomacy, because we're bringing the real data, and we can now start measuring real data thanks to IoT. Now, the power that you mentioned, yes, Stanford is very powerful, okay? And they do a lot of innovations, but Silicon Valley cannot be replicated globally, okay? Sudan, we're working with them to develop wet kits according to their needs. We don't need to bring the highest high tech. Everybody tries to throw the latest and greatest high technology to solve problems. That's not how it works. This is where context is very important. We're working with universities like in Colombia. They use plants and certain combination of rocks and plants to disinfect and purify water. We don't need to bring, chlorine dispensers to the field. So the context is very, very important. And I need to stress that. And you're making a good point. Context is so important, and we need to learn from each other. And this is what is happening with Uganda, with Peru. And we're learning from each other. We're not trying to push the Silicon Valley smartness into them. It doesn't work that way. There were so many intents to replicate Silicon Valley around the world, and even here in New Mexico, most of the IP that we generate ends up in the Silicon Valley, but we don't have a Silicon Valley in New Mexico because we have, highest concentration of scientists in the world. So context is very important, and I agree with you. We need to reach out more. I mean, we don't claim we have the solution. Peace engineering comes not from the engineering field. Engineering is about problem solving. And we need to do the problem solving across disciplines. We just borrow the word engineering because that implies problem solving. And peace is because you cannot have sustainability without peace, and peace without sustainability. So this is the idea behind this. And Sergio, we'd love to talk to you. Maybe we can collaborate and land this, because this is open to everybody. We don't have the power here. What I just showed is what I'm doing with my colleagues here at UNM in our context. And then there's other people that can present their cases, like people in Drexel. They work in Syria, and so we don't have a president in Syria. They do. So it's the consortium that's very important, and it's open to everybody. I don't know if I answered that question, or anyway, but I would like to have a conversation with you if possible.
Thank you. Yes, a lot of pieces in there were really helpful. Thank you. And I know Kyle, and I know a few people. I know from George Mason as well, because
cool.
we're both graduates from the same master's program at UPeace. So great. Yeah, and I would love to also connect. That's wonderful.
Wonderful.
So do you have my email?
I probably do.
Okay. Yeah, but reach out, if not through Aliki or whatever.
Okay, great.
Thank you. Great question. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Sergio. All right. We have another question from the audience, and it states, I am from India. How can an autonomous college be a part of this program? Or how can an individual faculty be a part of this program?
We are open to institutions and individuals. So like I said, peace engineering starts with the individual on measuring your footprint. Let me type my email. I hope people can people read my email? I hope so.
It's best if you type it in the chat box.
I did type it in the chat
Oh, yeah.
box. Okay.
Okay.
Please reach out to me, and we work with India. We have several contacts in India, and of course we want to expand. We're working with one university to really expand their sustainability program, connected with the Peace Engineering program here we have at UNM, and collaborate in exchanging students, developing a minor and all of that. So we are open. And again, what's going back to what Sergio asked, context is so important, okay? And we have so much to learn from you, and vice versa. And that's the purpose of Peace Engineering.
Excellent. Thank you. All right, we have another question. One of the significant challenges of engineering for peace is the management of climate disasters. As we recently had in Brazil, in the city of Petrópolis, the great difficulty in managing this disaster is the poor logistics applied to the rescue activities and the search for victims in the sea and mud left behind. I would like to hear your considerations about this issue.
Thank you. That's a tough question. And first of all, this is my personal opinion, okay? A lot of these towns, favelas, shanty towns, and we keep seeing this around the world, that they grow without any planning, okay? And this is what happens with there's no planning, and then all of a sudden infrastructure needs to be built, and there's no consideration for the major storms that we're going to see, and they're going to get more intense around the world. Rains, South America is going to be rains. Here we have drought. The water is shifting. It's drying here, but the water is moving somewhere else. So things are going to get more intense, and the lack of planning is what a lot of, I'm not attributing 100% to that. And then, okay, now that this happened, how do you come up with the first response to take care of this if you have no infrastructure and no data? I don't know if they had any data on how the city was built, because all these things grow organically. I am from Bolivia, and I've seen this so many times. Again, these small towns, neighborhoods grow organically without any planning, and all of a sudden there's a major disaster. In Bolivia, the same thing, rains. Because of excessive rains, it doesn't rain, it's just buckets are poured on top in a very few hours, and that infrastructure cannot sustain. So even the construction, there's no specifications how you're going to build housing. So it's a very complex problem. I don't think I have the right answer, but we're dealing with complex problems, and this is why we need to learn how to deal with that. But it has to start early on, because once it's in place, how do you fix that? I don't know. I don't think I answered.
Thank you. I can say that, by addressing the question itself, it's doing exactly as you stated, Dr. Ramiro. You're connecting the dots. We're bringing people together on this call through IFES, through GEDC, to share this data and work towards a better infrastructure for places all over the world. So, thank you for the response. I think the answer is that we can work together to solve the questions. It kind of rolls into the next question. Why were most of the examples and the images used taken from less developed countries? And I think, Dr. Romero, you mentioned that, there is maybe not a set infrastructure put in place initially, and that's why we are developing peace engineering efforts to address these issues. But do you have any more to say on that subject?
Aliki, I lost you. If you can repeat the question, you went muted and I missed half of your question. Can you repeat, please?
Sure. The question was, most of the examples used in the presentation and some of the images seem to be taken from less developed countries?
Okay. Not really. A lot of those images that at the beginning climate change, they're from here, from the US, okay, and developed world. I have images from all over the world, and we're all connected. I mean, and when I created ISTEC in 1990, in 92 we organized our General Assembly, and in 1990 there was no internet. 92 there was very little internet in the region meaning Latin America. Okay.
Understood. Okay. All right, we have another question. In my observations, engineering faculty seem uncomfortable with values, yet many of these topics are value-laden. How do you suggest introducing values into engineering courses? I see no overall philosophy in the peace engineering minor.
Worldwide, what is it? Wild world, Greenpeace. There's a lot of data now that can be shared, and I just didn't show the right images, I guess, and I apologize for that.
All right, we have, what are your views on sustainability with respect to electricity generation using nuclear power versus solar, wind power, and other forms of renewable sources of energy?
I think nuclear power is going to come back because especially now what's happening between Russia and Ukraine, it's clean, but it's dangerous. Okay. Solar is on the rise. Also, wind is on the rise. And the other thing that it'll happen is I believe in hydro, but not the big dams. You know, like we're accustomed of seeing these multi-billion-dollar dams that really don't take in consideration the planet and sustainability. But I see there's a lot of research being done in very small hydro generators that can be used in small rivers and acequias that we called, irrigation ditches and all of that, that can help power the basic needs. The other thing that we see is this tendency of, thanks to Internet of Things, technology that is low power, consumes low power, and this is why we're creating this wet kit. We want to provide in several backpacks, create a hub in remote areas that can power basic telecommunication equipment like a tablet, cell phone, but also basic medical equipment, and also can provide basic water treatment. So technology is getting there, and it's cheaper, and it's consumes less and less energy. So things are converging, but we need to work together on this. And then there's sustainability. There's another project run by Duke University, and it's also a eco project based on sustainability. And I encourage you guys to reach out to Duke University, Nichols Institute. We work with them, and they're very focused on sustainability, and look also at natural sources for sustainability. That was when I answering the question of Sergio. It's not about throwing technology, the latest technology, to solve a problem. There's so many natural solutions out there that we need to learn and use them. This is why context is so important. We need to learn from each other.
Thank you, Dr. Romero. I agree. So one question that I'm seeing in the chat, it's focusing on the aftermath of the schooling of these programs, these masters and minors. What can one take as a student fulfilling these degrees? Where can they go? What are we talking about in terms of employment and continuing the effort towards, a more peaceful, sustainable globe?
Yeah, that's a great question. The reason we're creating this is because, yes, we want to change the world, but at the same time, we have to answer that question. are the students that graduate, can they be employed? Okay, that's the main question. And I'm gonna point blank say yes. Awareness is on the rise. Even the World Bank, all the labs here in the US, the financial industry, they are looking for new professionals that can connect the dots of sustainability, peace, complex systems, system thinking. There's a big change. Even in the Wall Street is changing. We're talking about ESG metrics on how do you finance. We're trying to bring with these metrics more transparency on how money gets moved. So there's a big change in every discipline, and this is what people want to. And this one of the reasons we created the certificate program. There's a lot of professionals out there that they're not going to come back to the university to get another master's degree or an undergraduate, but they want to learn the basic tools like system thinking or modeling or big data, so they can use those tools to the existing job. And this is where Peace Engineering can help bring all these tools for them. Get them a certificate, because these people need those tools to solve problems today. If you look at not only the finance, but look at the multilateral organizations, they're looking for people that also can connect the dots between policy to finance, engineering, anthropology, etc. So there's a big change. I mean, we're just want to be there. I mean, we're not creating this. We just saw this as a new emerging field, and we want to be part of it.
Excellent. So I think we are nearing the end of the webinar, but let's take one more question. We have, how do you think IoT can make smart grids work across electrical power networks and computer networks? Do you see the application of blockchain technology in smart grids in the near future?
Yes, and yes. I work in those areas. We have a smart grid program here, and IoT can help connect all kind of networks, right? It could be the electrical and telecommunication network. They're merging. Those two networks are merging, and then we need to protect them. So this is why we need IoT. So they're all connected, and there's a tremendous future there. And every device, if you look at the water network, water pipes, water infrastructure, we need to connect that. We need to protect that network. How do we protect that network? We need to bring in sensors. And again, now the water network, the road network, are being connected through IoT, and not only to improve those infrastructures, but also to protect them. Cybersecurity is huge. Before, we only worried about the internet that doesn't go down. Now that network is pervasive. It's in the health care, it's supply chains, it's in the food security, it's in every network that you can see. We need those sensors to make sure they're more efficient, run smoothly, and we protect them at the same time. Blockchain is going to come. It is here. The problem I have with blockchain is the mining. A lot of the mining centers consume more energy than some of the smaller countries around the world. So this is a big concern that I have. So if maybe we can generate solar farms that can help the blockchain, or wind farms. This is a big problem. I mean, blockchain is here, it's going to stay, but it's a big problem because it consumes a lot of energy.
Thank you for the response. Okay, I have to admit that it seems that the audience, as well as myself, I want to keep going, but we are reaching the top of the hour. I want to remind everyone in the audience that if we want to further these conversations, again, Dr. Romero has his email in the chat. We also have our World Engineering Education Forum coming up this year in Cape Town, South Africa. And our theme, which also ties into this, is adapting to global disruption, meeting the challenge with integrative, holistic, and sustainable energy. Let's keep on pushing these efforts forward. Please reach out to Dr. Ramiro with any questions, any comments, bringing the peace engineering to our communities worldwide. And I'm dropping the link to our World Engineering Education Forum in the chat for more information. You could register and take a look at our call for papers. Please visit ifees.net, ifees.net, or the Global Engineering Deans Council website for more information on what people like Dr. Ramiro are doing to push for a better, more sustainable, peaceful world. Dr. Ramiro, thank you very much for joining today. Everyone, register for our webinar next week. It covers our Global Engineering Deans Council Diversity Award winner of 2021, Patronos Hermosos. They're doing wonderful work in Mexico. And thank you very much for joining. Any questions, concerns, please reach out to us. We'll see you all next week. Thank you, Dr. Ramiro.
Thank you, everybody, and stay safe. And we got a lot work to do together. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you.